In this video we're going to continue looking at king and pawn endgames. In this one you can see on the board here we're looking at a situation where one side has an outside pawn majority. So here you've got 2 against 1 with white on the queen side, while black has 2v1 on the king side. And whoever this is good for really depends on the placement of the kings. In this case it's very clearly good for white, because the outside pawn's majority means that black's king is in completely the wrong place in order to block it, and he has to move the king all the way over to the queen side, which will mean that white will certainly win, because it will take too many tempi for the king to get over there. So for example in this case, if black was to start, maybe play king f8, and a good way for white could play either b4 or a4. It's usually good to start with pushing the extra pawn, because then you kind of lock the sole pawn in place. So after b5 you kind of lock that a7 pawn down, mean that it can't really move, otherwise you're going to push on. In this case it doesn't really matter. I mean, white could have started with the a pawn, but it's generally good practice to do that, and there are some endgames where it does make a difference, so it's good to get into that habit, which come up again in maybe more advanced videos. King d8, a4. Now white is threatening to play a6, so if for example black played king b8, then a6 would be a very good move, and then white would get his pawn onto the 7th rank, and this would be a very easy win. Let's say h4. There's no way that black's going to be able to get a pawn so far up the board, because whatever he does now, white will bring the king up and block further up than black's blocked his pawn. A better try for black would be a6 here. a6 is a nice move in that it gains an extra retreat square for black's king. So after b6, king b7. Black's done better in this case, so he's guaranteed to have a retreat square on b8. However, it's really not enough, because after h4 white's going to be able to block much further up the board than black has. So let's say h5, king up, g5. White could move the king now, maybe king h2 would be a good decent move, or he can just capture and then block on the 3rd rank, and white wins by 2 tempi, because not only has he got an extra retreat square, but it's also black to move. So after king c8 and then retreats the king, he has a winning position. In fact it's even worse for black. Black actually doesn't even have time anymore to connect the kings, because the queen will cut him off. He could have connected the kings a bit earlier on, and then kind of admitted that he was in a losing position. But either way, it's going to be a win for white, because of this outside pawn majority. This doesn't often come up in games, but it does happen now and again. I think most of the reason it doesn't happen is because players are quite aware of it. It's a bad thing to go in for, so they tend to avoid it. But I have caught some players unaware who maybe were just kind of pawn counting, thinking that it was fine, and ended up being in a disastrously lost position. So it's worth knowing, making sure that you don't simplify into the wrong kind of endgame. The next endgames are going to be looking more at piece endgames, so where one side would have an extra piece, or either a rook, knight or bishop, and looking to kind of simplify into a winning king and pawn endgame.